A radiant star like Natalie Wood, who once captivated the world with her smile in West Side Story, left behind a secret notebook listing 6 people she could never forgive. Did you know? Those names were not just people who crossed her path, they were the keys to unlocking the mystery of her death on the icy waters near Catalina Island. So, dear friends, sit down, sip a cup of tea, and join me as we step into a story that's both glamorous and heartbreaking, where Hollywood's dazzling glow hides deep, festering wounds. Are you ready to uncover the dark truth behind your idol? Let me take you back to the 1950s and 60s, when Hollywood was the dream of the entire world, and Natalie Wood was its precious gem. Born on July 20th, 1938, in San Francisco, Natalie carried Russian blood, with glossy brown hair and eyes that seemed to tell stories never spoken aloud. Her superstitious mother looked at her 4-year-old daughter and declared, "This girl will be a star." And so, Natalie was thrust into the spotlight. No childhood, no carefree days of play. Can you imagine? A child who should have been laughing with friends was instead memorizing lines, standing before cameras, and smiling even as her heart trembled. At 9 years old, Natalie became a sensation with Miracle on 34th Street. Do you remember? That Christmas film where little Susan made us believe in magic. Then, at 16, she stood beside James Dean in Rebel Without a Cause, becoming an icon of a rebellious generation. And when West Side Story premiered, Natalie, as Maria, set our hearts ablaze. But, dear friends, behind every role was the real Natalie, a girl who traded love and tears for applause. Are you curious? What drove such a bright star to live in the shadow of pain? Natalie's story isn't just about glamour. It's about wounds of the soul, toxic relationships, and a mysterious death on November 29th, 1981, when she was found floating in the Pacific Ocean near Catalina Island. She was only 43, dressed in a nightgown, wool socks, and a red down jacket. Did you know? The autopsy revealed high alcohol levels, bruises on her arms and legs, and a cut on her cheek. An accident, or a crime covered up. In 2025, a secret notebook was discovered, titled, "For My Daughter, Things I Was Never Allowed to Say." In it, Natalie listed 6 names she despised: Robert Wagner, Warren Beatty, Jack Warner, Johnny Carson, Christopher Walken, and Stefanie Powers. Who were these people, and why did they cause her such pain? Let's find out together. First, let's talk about Robert Wagner, the husband Natalie loved passionately, but also the first name on her list of grievances. Wagner, a handsome actor and star of Heart to Heart, stole Natalie's heart when she was just 18. In 1957, they married, becoming Hollywood's golden couple. Dear friends, picture a young girl standing at the peak of fame, believing she'd found her harbor of happiness. But Wagner was no knight from a fairy tale. He was jealous, controlling, and often looked at Natalie with eyes that made her tremble. She once confided to a close friend, "He doesn't hit me, but those eyes keep me awake all night." Can you feel her loneliness? Their first marriage collapsed in 1962 amid rumors of betrayal and fiery arguments. Natalie left, trying to rediscover herself, but in 1972, she returned to Wagner. She wrote, "I don't believe he's changed. I'm just too tired to start over." Do you see it? The tragedy of a woman craving love but finding only pain. And then, on that fateful night in 1981, Natalie was found floating a few hundred meters from the yacht Splendour. Wagner, who was on board with Christopher Walken and the captain, Dennis Davern, didn't call for help immediately when she went missing. Are you curious? Why would a husband hesitate in his wife's moment of life or death? The police initially called it an accident, but in 2012 the cause of death was revised to drowning and undetermined factors. In 2018, Wagner was named a person of interest in the case. In her notebook, Natalie wrote, "I hate Robert because he didn't try to save me. Dear friends, ask yourselves, if you love someone, could you stand still as they vanished into the darkness?" Wagner. Once Natalie's dream became her final nightmare. Did you know? A witness on a nearby boat heard screams, "Help me! Please help me!" But Wagner did nothing. Where does the truth lie? In his heart or at the bottom of the deep sea? Next is Warren Beatty, the second man on the list. Beatty, a rising star in 1961, met Natalie on the set of Splendour in the Grass. With his charming smile and captivating eyes, he made Natalie believe she was the center of his world. She once said, "He was the first person who made me forget Robert." But, dear friends, Beatty loved only himself. He dated Natalie while flirting with others, from co-stars to reporters. One night, Natalie arrived at his hotel only to find him with someone else. Her heart shattered. Can you feel that pain? The agony of pouring your heart into someone, only to be betrayed. In 1972, Beatty said of Natalie, "She was sensitive, beautiful, but too fragile to be my woman." Those words, dear friends, were like a dagger. Natalie smiled for the public, but inside, she wept. She wrote, "I hate Warren for making me believe I was chosen, then using me as a ladder to climb." Are you curious? How could a woman as talented as Natalie fall into the spiral of deception? Beatty, to her, was not just a failed lover, but a symbol of betrayal in Hollywood's glittering world. The third is Jack Warner, the Warner Brothers mogul who turned Natalie into a studio puppet. In 1956, Natalie signed an exclusive 7-year contract with Warner Brothers, forcing her to take every role and forbidding her from loving anyone without the studio's approval. Warner, with ruthless pragmatism, treated actresses like property. Natalie cried through nights over roles she didn't want, but they told her, "The audience only needs you to be beautiful, not to feel." Can you imagine that powerlessness? A young girl stripped of freedom just to maintain her stardom? When Natalie fell for Warren Beatty, Warner warned, "If you get pregnant, your contract ends." She dreamed of a family, but instead of having a child, had an abortion, not because she wanted to, but because she feared losing everything. Natalie wrote, "Jack Warner didn't need to humiliate me. He just said, 'You belong to this studio.' And I believed him." Did you know? That's the tragedy of a woman turned into a commodity by Hollywood. Nothing more. Warner, to Natalie, was the symbol of cruel control that made her lose herself. The fourth is Johnny Carson, the king of The Tonight Show, who turned Natalie's pain into a punchline. In 1979, after battling depression, Natalie appeared on his show. But instead of welcoming her with respect, Carson mocked, "We thought you disappeared for good. Or were you auditioning for Sleeping Beauty and booze?" The audience roared, but Natalie wanted to cry. Then Carson went on, "Oh, at least you didn't drown in your marriage." Dear friends, just a week earlier, Natalie had collapsed from insomnia and panic. Those jokes were like salt in her wounds. Natalie wrote, "I hate Johnny Carson for turning my pain into a comedy act. Have you ever been hurt by words that seemed harmless?" For Natalie, it wasn't just a joke. It was humiliation before all of America. Carson, with his witty smile, unwittingly became one of those who wounded her most deeply. Are you curious? How could a strong woman like Natalie endure such public ridicule? The fifth is Christopher Walken, Natalie's co-star in Brainstorm, who was on the Splendour the night she died. Walken, with his enigmatic demeanor, was a key witness but chose silence. In 1981, he said, "We drank. There was an argument, but I went to bed before it happened. No details, no sounds, no confirmation." When the case was reopened in 2011, he still maintained, "I have nothing more to say." Natalie wrote, "I hate Chris for making me feel I deserve to be left behind. Do you think someone who hears a cry for help and stays silent is innocent? Did you know?" Walken's silence left a gaping question mark in the hearts of those who loved Natalie. Finally, Stefanie Powers, not among the initial 5, but named as the 6th in Natalie's notebook. Powers, Wagner's co-star in Heart to Heart, sparked Natalie's jealousy with their on-screen romance. On the Splendour, tensions between Natalie and Wagner, partly due to Powers, fueled heated arguments. Natalie wrote, "I hate Stefanie for making me doubt my husband's love. Do you see? A woman, however talented and beautiful, still faced insecurities in love, and Powers, though unintentionally, contributed to that tragedy." Dear friends, Natalie Wood's story isn't just about a mysterious death on cold waters. It's about a girl exploited by Hollywood, betrayed by those she trusted, and imprisoned by her own stardom. On November 29, 1981, Natalie was found floating near Catalina Island in her nightgown and down jacket. A witness heard screams, "Help me! Please help me!" But no one came. The dinghy, Prince Valiant, drifted with its engine off and oars locked. Natalie, who couldn't swim and feared water so much she avoided washing her hair. How could she have left the yacht alone? Do you believe it was an accident? Captain Dennis Davern said Wagner smashed a wine bottle in a jealous rage, yelling at Walken, "Are you trying to seduce my wife?" Davern heard the dinghy being untied. Then an eerie silence. Wagner, when he returned, looked like he'd been through a war. Natalie's sister, Lana Wood, said, "My sister would never go out on a boat alone." She suspected Wagner, but added, "When drunk, anything can happen." Are you curious? Where does the truth lie? At the ocean's depths or in the hearts of the survivors? Imagine that night on the Splendour. The sound of waves, clinking glasses, then a scream tearing through the dark. Davern, who saw Natalie as family, said he heard Wagner and Natalie arguing about her being away from family too long. Walken, though trying to stay out of it, was drawn into the web of jealousy. Powers, though absent, lingered as a shadow in Natalie's mind. Did you know? A woman terrified of water since childhood, haunted by her mother's prophecy of drowning, ended her life in her greatest fear. Was it fate or a calculated plan? Over 40 years later, the case remains unsolved. Wagner hasn't been charged, Walken remains silent, and the bruises on Natalie's body are still a mystery. But her notebook, with those 6 names, is a message. Not to hate them, but to keep others from my fate. Can you hear Natalie's voice? A voice silenced by Hollywood, but today, we've brought it back. Natalie wasn't just a victim of the men in her life. She was a victim of Hollywood itself, where beauty and talent were commodified. From childhood, her mother forced her to act. Directors like Nicholas Ray exploited her, and men like Warner controlled her. She was hospitalized for depression, labeled easy. But in truth, she was a young girl swallowed by a glamorous world. Are you curious? How could a strong woman like Natalie endure such wounds? Think of the old days, Beatty, when we sat before screens admiring Natalie Wood. Her films, from Gypsy to Brainstorm, are our cherished memories. But now, knowing the true story, I hope you'll see her with a more empathetic heart. Natalie wasn't just a star. She was a woman, a mother, a broken heart still seeking justice. Did you know? Every time I rewatch West Side Story, I see not only Maria but also Natalie, with sadness hidden behind her smile. Dear friends, as you hear this story, I hope you recall those bygone days when Hollywood was our dream. But I also want you to think about what lies behind the glamour, the wounds, the secrets, the untold truths. Keep this story in your heart, and when you rewatch Natalie's films, remember, every smile may hide a tear. Natalie Wood, you shone brightly, and though the world may forget, we never will.